The story of the silent ship. It was a morning when the wind whispered to the sea. The sky hovered between gray and blue, and the horizon had vanished. The ocean was, as always, deep, patient, and a keeper of secrets. There was a ship that morning, Mary Celeste. But this was no ordinary ship. Its sails were halfway open, its hull sturdy, and its masts stood tall. But there was not a single soul on board. It was as if the ship were alive, but its spirit had been hollowed out. The beginning of the voyage. Weeks before, everything was different. The captain was experienced, stern but fair. Beside him were his wife and young daughter. The crew were reliable sailors. This ship wasn't just carrying cargo, it carried hope. In the holds were hundreds of barrels of industrial alcohol. The sailors knew the cargo was dangerous. On the day they set sail, the sea was eerily calm. "This sea, it's too quiet," one sailor remarked. "What kind of sailor is afraid of silence?" The other laughed. But silence is often a harbinger of something else. As the days passed, the first days were peaceful. The little girl played on the deck while the captain's wife wrote in her diary. But then, small things began to change. First, the smells. A faint, throat-burning vapor rose from the holds. Then, the compass began to flicker, as if unable to make up its mind. The captain checked his sextant and charts. "We find the direction ourselves, not the compass," he muttered, but unease stirred within him. Before the storm one night, the sea stopped completely. No waves, no wind. The sails hung limp. "It's like the sea is holding its breath," the sailors whispered. Then a muffled rumble came from deep within the ship. The invisible danger. When the hatch was opened, the odor was unbearable. Alcohol fumes shimmered in the air. Some barrels were leaking, the rising temperature straining the hatches. The captain knew a single spark could blow them to pieces. Moment of decision. The captain made a hard choice to abandon the ship, but only temporarily. The plan: everyone would board the small lifeboat, tied to the ship by a rope. He took his sextant and logbook. Without them, they were blind. "Where are we going?" the little girl asked. "Just a short journey." Her mother smiled, though her eyes were filled with fear. The snap. Everyone boarded the lifeboat. For a while, the ship drifted slowly with the boat trailing behind. Then, the wind came. Suddenly, a gale. The ship's sails caught the wind greedily, and it lunged forward. The rope tightened with a feral sound. "The rope is going to break," a sailor screamed. "Snap!" The separation. The ship surged ahead. The lifeboat was left vulnerable and alone. The captain watched as the ship vanished into the fog. The little girl's crying was lost in the howling wind. One sailor cursed, another began to pray. The beginning of the silence. Now there was no one left. The wheel turned slightly. The hull spoke to the waves. Night fell, day broke, but there were no footsteps on the deck, no laughter, no orders, only the wind. The encounter days later, another ship spotted the vessel. "Hey, is anyone there?" a sailor shouted. No answer. They boarded cautiously. What they saw became a story they would never forget. An abandoned life. Everything was in its place. In the galley, an evening meal sat on the stove, half prepared and left behind. In the captain's cabin, the bed was made. A toy doll lay on the floor. But the people, the sextant, and the charts were gone. They had vanished without a trace. The aftermath. The ship was taken to harbor, but the questions remained. No lifeboat was ever found. No survivors ever spoke. Some said they fled in terror. Some said they fell prey to nature's tricks. Some whispered, "The sea took them." End of the tale. The sea appears calm, but no one knows what it hides. Some ships carry more than cargo. They carry stories. And the most chilling part? Some stories are never finished.